And it looks like we're live.
Awesome.
All right, what's going on, John?
Not much. I'm excited. My smart ring is coming in tomorrow, so I'm excited to geek out with that one. So, how are things with you?
Good. Which one did you order?
I got the Ultra Human Air. The reason is it gives you a lot more data points, and it seems like they're constantly adding new features through software upgrades. So, and there's no subscription. So,
Oh, that's wrong. All right, I'm just getting a couple of things loaded up here. So the other ones require a monthly subscription?
the Ultra Human doesn't.
No, but you're saying that Samsung Galaxy does,
Oh
the
no,
Galaxy Ring
Samsung
and
Galaxy doesn't, but it's not available. It's not going to be available in Canada when it launches. Although I probably could order it from the States. I just figured, and then the Aura you have to pay for subscription, and then there's another one that I was looking at, the Ring Con, but they're releasing a version 2 in a few months, so I didn't want to wait that long. So
Fair enough. And I wanted
see
to
how it
ask
goes.
you one other thing. We talked about this a while ago. You bought one of those hydrogenated water bottles and it was going to
Oh
give you
yeah.
all sorts of energy and stuff. It's been probably 3 months now. Are you still drinking it? And what are the results?
No, I'm not, because like the amount of water that it hydrogenates is so ridiculous compared to the amount of water I drink. So it's such a pain in the ass. Like I got to recharge it. It's got to run for like, it takes about a minute to do its thing. And so with my ADHD, I couldn't be bothered. If they come out with a bigger one, or if I could find a bigger one that can do like a liter at a time or something, a liter of cola, then I'll use it. But yeah, it's now sitting on my shelf. Now I must say, the water did taste different. I didn't. I don't think I drank it long enough to notice a significant difference. But again, yeah,
And that's fair. All
yeah.
right, you ready to get
So
into it? So I just wanted, that's just a follow up. I might be able to
yeah,
splice those two together when we go,
for sure. Yeah, let's
those
jump
in.
in.
This is now. All right. So the first one I want to talk about here is Llama 3.1 versus OpenAI.
Yeah. So this is cool. So Meta is talking about their new AI model Llama 3.1, and this thing it stirs significant interest in the tech community because it's got significant performance improvements over existing models, including that from OpenAI. So the one thing, and it's funny, just as a side note, so I'll tell this, and then I'll side note. So one of the standout features is its open source nature. So it allows researchers and developers to build on and customize the model without restrictions. I don't know if you saw recently Mark Zuckerberg talking with the head of NVIDIA. I can't remember his name. And he got so passionate, he swore. He's like, "I'm sorry, but closed, closed source just pisses me off." It was so funny. So you should, if you haven't seen it, you should go look at it. I think it's on TechCrunch. But so the approach that they're taking, it contrasts with OpenAI's more guarded stance on their proprietary models. So that limits public access and experimentation. But in terms of technical advancements, it boasts improved NLP, natural language processing, which makes it more adept at understanding and generating human-like text. So I think what they were saying was it's partly due to the innovative training techniques and a more extensive and diverse data set. So I'm kind of curious what that means. But also the architecture has been refined. It's more efficient. So it's boasting that it's more accurate and faster compared to its predecessor and rivals. But I haven't had a chance to mess around with it yet. So I've never actually played with Llama too much. I did at the beginning until I found Claude, and then Claude's just been my go-to ever since.
So Meta has open sourced this.
Yeah.
And so we can just download it and install it in our local machine.
depending on your architecture, maybe. I know that you can develop on it, but I don't know if you can run it locally.
All right. I've heard there's some Llama models you can run locally, so I'm not
Yes,
sure whether that's this or whatnot. So I've just taken a look at this.
that's a
So
good question.
I'm going to be experimenting in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to install Fabric. I'm going to install Llama and a couple others on my thing and on my Mac here and see what I really like, because there's some automation stuff I'm doing and I'd like to see localization of these things. But there are always improving. And we talked one point about Grok, and I don't know if you went over and checked out Grok, GROQ, I
Okay.
think.
Oh,
I think it's
GROQ, the Canadian.
yeah.
Yeah, I love Grok. I
It's
worked with them before.
super fast.
I haven't gone to their platform, but yeah. So they originally were an AI hardware company. They were developing an AI chip. I don't know if they still are, but
So
they
anyway,
might have
back to
pivoted.
this. It's just like it's fast. Like you do ChatGPT or these other models, and it's like
Yeah,
watching typing. Like as soon as you hit finish, like hit enter, it's there's a paragraph or two written already. It's not.
crazy.
Yeah, it's like fast. He the CEO demonstrated on stage at Collision that he like just started writing a book, and it was writing 10,000 word book like in seconds. Not
Jesus.
yeah. So it's fast. Now we're going to talk in a bit about what this is costing the industry, and are we really getting the productivity out of this that we think. But
Yeah.
what Meta will say is that it used synthetic data or generated by a model rather than humans to have 405 billion parameter versions of Llama 3.1 improve the smaller 70 billion and 8 billion versions. So what they did is they used their big version of Llama to improve their smaller versions of Llama. From an AI perspective, say analyze all this.
Interesting.
And they predict that Llama 3.1 will be popular with developers as a teacher for smaller models that are then deployed in a more cost-effective way. So yeah, so the 405 billion parameter one, I think, is the one that goes online, and the 70 billion and the 8 billion versions are the ones you can download.
Wow.
So what do you, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
What do you think? So this is faster than OpenAI right now. Lots of people are suggesting it's better. Is this just a leapfrog situation? Because I've seen lots of stuff about GPT-5. We're going to talk about SearchGPT. I've
Yeah.
also seen Meta just release Sam, which I want to talk about next week.
Okay.
So it's their spatial object awareness. So you can highlight something in a video and it tracks it through the whole thing and stuff. It's pretty interesting.
Cool.
So is this going to change anything?
Yeah, it's gonna like any advancement. This is great. This is why competition is so good. Whenever someone overtakes another model, that just means that as developers are developing the next generation of their model, they're gonna learn from each of these and try to incorporate some changes and try to beat it again. But I think we're at a point where the innovation for AI, and again, for all of those out there, this is not AI. This is machine learning. Okay, like they're calling it AI, but none of this is artificial intelligence. It's a preset learned taught techniques. But I think the next innovation is going to be agents, GPT agents, and the ability to create agents and get them to do things and kind of control them like that. I think that's the next kind of evolution of what we're seeing with these LLMs.
I agree. And we start seeing where you start to see the real automation is where you're using the APIs and not on the platforms, and you're calling it to do stuff and then taking that to do something else and calling something else and doing that and doing these
Yeah,
things is the automation, as we're talking about with our effortless ops series that's starting in September. Here's the article on TorontoStarts.com, Silicon Scoop. Meta's Llama 3.1 represents a significant leap in the development of large language models. They recently released 3.1, which boasts 3 versions: the 8 billion version, the 70 billion version, and the impressive 405 billion version. These models are designed to be open sourced, aligned with Meta's commitment to forcing innovation through transparency and community collaboration. The 405 billion version in particular is heralded as the world's largest and most capable openly available foundation model, setting new benchmarks for performance and scalability. I really don't like when they put stuff like most capable openly available foundation model. Okay, so I got to take a step back. Which ones is OpenAI a openly available foundation model or not?
Yeah, I think it is, but yeah.
So when comparing the performance here, 3.1 to latest OpenAI GPT-4, the performance benchmarks are a critical factor, obviously. And Llama 3.1 has demonstrated superior results in several key tasks. There's a bunch of different benchmarks they use to highlight this stuff. So it's important to note that Llama 3.1 does have areas where it falls behind. For instance, in the human eval benchmark, which assesses coding abilities, GPT-4 maintains a slight edge, indicates that Llama 3.1 excels in many areas. There's still room for improvement in several areas.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to find it here. So
and the things like the extended context length in Llama 3.1, which is expanded to 128,000 tokens, so you can have longer output, which is fantastic. Good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And by the way, just as a side note, I did some research as we're talking. So it is possible to run 3.1 locally, except on our Macs, our M chip Mac, MacBook Pros. It's possible, but there's limitations. So if you want to run Llama 3.1, they're essentially saying you need an NVIDIA GPU with CUDA support that's recommended, and a minimum of 16 gigs of RAM.
All right, I'll have to take a look at that because maybe that's not what I'm going to be running local.
Yeah, but no, it's cool. So, I'm gonna have to look. I can't remember. I gotta find the site again that has the LLM leaderboards that shows, and I'm curious where Llama 3.1 ranks against the other LLMs. So, but it's curious to see. It's great that Zuckerberg is sticking to open source. I think that's great for innovation. It's great for open innovation. But we'll have to see what the others do.
Yeah, and we'll also have to see, we've talked about this race, and this has been a huge cost, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And the spend is going on. Meta's ongoing investment in AI infrastructure includes the deployment of 600,000 H100 equivalent compute units. That underscores its commitment to pushing the boundaries of AI performance. So, they're also including potentially multimodal model capabilities, allowing models to handle text, audio, and visual input simultaneously, which we've seen from other models like Apple's 4M model.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to see. It excels in benchmarks. There are some tests that GPT-4o still does better. There are some technology requirements. The use of NVIDIA H100 GPUs, and you mentioned maybe not using the M1 chips.
Yeah,
anything else you want to talk
about? Optimized for? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about here about the future developments and what we can look forward to?
I'm excited for Claude 4. I love Claude. So Anthropic's Claude. There was something about Anthropic in the news recently. I'll have to find it and maybe we'll talk about it. But yeah.
All right, let's jump on to this next one. How CrowdStrike's update caused Windows blue screen of death on millions of computers and shut down the internet, still affecting travel. It's still affecting many things. I know that there's internet usage down in certain areas. There's lots of stuff still down.
Yeah.
So where are we with this?
Yeah, this is crazy. So like it just baffles me that like when you're doing something so critical that you're not doing the right testing, like the QA testing and patch management flaws and things like that. Like this is just absolutely nuts. And like there should be something to me. There should be like a fine or something to companies like this because like this is basic IT um, that you should be doing, right? That you should be doing the proper testing before deploying. So apparently, what I found out doing a deep dive is the update. There was a driver conflict in the update, which included changes to their security drivers, which conflicted with essential Windows system drivers. And the conflict disrupted the normal operation of the OS, causing it to fail to load correctly. So at the kernel level, the bug affected the Windows kernel, the core part of the OS, which for those that don't know, which is responsible for managing system resources and hardware. And that's really severe because they can prevent the system from starting up properly, which leads to the BSODs, which is the blue screens of death. But like, yeah, I hope the person who was in charge of this got fired. I really do, because this is unacceptable, especially something so critical like this, something so critical for the infrastructure. But at the same time, it just goes to show that we can't count on cloud infrastructure going forward. We need some sort of hybrid solution so that stuff like this doesn't happen again, or start looking at Web3 type technology so that if one node goes down, then at least the rest can kind of continue functioning. But
CrowdStrike update was supposed to be like any other silent update, automatically providing the latest protections for its customer. It was a tiny file, just 40K, that's distributed over the web. CrowdStrike issues these regular without instant, but this one was different, obviously exposed a massive flaw. And when they came out, the CEO came out and said, hey, we fixed it. They didn't. It wasn't really true. What they did was they stopped updating more computers so that it wouldn't propagate any farther. The computers that were already affected were still messed up, and some of them are still being recovered today.
yeah, yeah, it's absolutely nuts. And like there needs to sorry, but like when it comes to things like this, when it comes to affecting how much it affects people, there needs to be some sort of policy in place that punishes companies that do stupid things like this.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with you. The incident not only disrupted millions of systems globally, but also highlighted the critical nature of software reliability and their interconnectedness of modern IT infrastructures. And maybe what some people will call microsystem architecture, where all these startups and new companies, they have a little piece of their business that uses a SaaS model, and they have hundreds of them. And if one of them breaks, the whole business goes down.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
the repercussions were felt in various sectors: hospital, critical infrastructure services, showcasing the profound infrastructure of technical errors. I know my business partner was down at the clinic, and he couldn't get his x-rays and stuff because the machines were down. So I can't
Yeah,
imagine what other things happened there, like what all the other things that were way more critical that were affected. So George Kurtz, the CrowdStrike CEO, publicly acknowledged the mistake, emphasizing the commitment to resolving the problem and preventing occurrences. So, approximately 8.5 million Windows devices experience system crash. But, when we looked back at that article from The Verge, it said millions of computers were taken down in 78
yeah,
minutes or something. So I'm not really sure if those are the right numbers, because it seems low.
yeah. So,
So the question now
go ahead.
comes back to what you were about to say, what you were saying. I was just trying to say, okay, this is the impact. This is how it happened. It was this thing, and it
Yeah,
took hours, and there's people still recovering. What kind of penalty would you see a company like this suffering, and who would have the right? You're saying they should be
a
able to be
percentage
sued.
of
Yeah, go ahead.
a percentage of lost revenue. To put it measurable.
And if it's a percentage of lost revenue, who does that go to? Is it a class action that everyone shares?
I would say so.
And so
Whoever was
it's
affected by it. I don't know. It makes things complicated. Yeah, when you
uh,
get into the details of it, but
yeah, because everyone, airlines, banks, medical places, like, so this is it becomes a class action lawsuit, and class action lawsuits, no one makes money except for the lawyers,
yeah.
because you'll end up getting a $35 check or something
Well,
as
then
part of the
no, but I
thousands
don't
of
mean as a
claimants.
class action. I mean like a fine from the FTC or something like that, or that gets distributed that way, so that it's mostly the money that goes that instead of
Yeah, it would be nice if they were compensated. The question
yeah,
becomes is, do they have business insurance that compensates them? The problem is they're fined from the FTC and the
yeah,
European and whatever. None of that money goes back to those companies. They do the governments just keep it and use it to do
sure.
whatever.
Yeah, but like it's more for a deterrent, right? Like something that will deter them to make sure that they have the proper things in place, the proper procedures in place. Like that was just sloppy work.
Absolutely. In response to the crisis, Microsoft and CrowdStrike acted swiftly to mitigate the situation. Microsoft deployed specialized recovery tool designed to address the BSD issue caused by the faulty update. The tool accompanied detailed recovery instructions. The problem is, regular people don't know how to. If this
Yeah,
was my mother, until I physically went there and fixed it, there's no way she could do it. And
yeah,
I just my mother, but the average office worker.
yeah.
So this becomes a nightmare when you're talking about millions and millions of computers. They talk about steps of recovery. So how do we prevent this? Okay, we can say, great, they're gonna be investigated. If there's no question, stuff will happen. They'll probably get fined, but that's really not going to stop this in the future. So you're suggesting we need to make a more robust infrastructure and have backups for CrowdStrike and have someone else on the side? Do we need to dekernel a bunch of these services?
So one thing that would help, as far as like the people who don't have any IT background, is make the BSODs more detailed, and have a potential way to fix it in the BSOD itself, on the BSOD in the blue screen of death.
Maybe you could have had in this situation. Usually when the blue screen of death, it's a memory fault of some sort, and
True. Yeah.
it gives you information, as a former technical person who has had his share of troubleshooting blue screens of death to figure out.
Hmm.
It doesn't take long to figure out, oh, this is related to the video card slash video driver. Oh, this is related to audio. This is related to
Yeah.
memory. But you really, you need to know what you're doing to look
True.
that crap up and figure it out,
Yeah.
right? After a
Yeah.
while, when I was doing it, I knew, the dozen codes when they'd pop up, I knew exactly what that problem was. But,
Yeah.
when new stuff comes up, they're not going to say, "Oh, guess what? This was caused by this," because the problem is, here's what happens and why this doesn't happen on the Mac. Um,
Ex-
it doesn't happen on the Mac. One, because of attack surface. 90% of the
yeah.
universe runs Windows, so why would you attack this minor? But also because they protect the kernel. Windows is more focused on performance, and that's why after a while they brought the graphics drivers into the kernel, and they've brought several of these other things in the current kernel
Yeah.
for performance reasons, because swapping stuff inside and out and it's really heavy from a performance point of view. And as soon as you've done that, that's when you get these blue screens of death, because the kernel is no longer protected, because any one of these faulty systems now can disrupt it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, so as much as I hate Mac's closed environment, this just goes to show um, the difference between a closed environment and how much they control everything versus a more open environment where third party people can come in and make changes that affect the kernel and the OS itself, right?
Absolutely. And that's, we really need to the industry as a whole needs to take a long, hard look at this, because this is only going to happen more and more, I believe.
Yeah.
And, we need to take a step back until we become lax. This is a regular thing CrowdStrike rolls out all the time. So they never really did their due diligence where they roll it out in a test environment, test everything, make sure everything works the way you want it to, then deploy it elsewhere. When I
Yeah.
was working at Bell Mobility, for example, whenever we made a change in the wireless activation center, we had to run several tests, like several full
Yeah.
functioning tests that took hours to run. And if we changed anything by a millisecond from a performance point of view, we had to defend it. Why? Why
Yeah.
are we putting this in? What's happening? Blah, blah, blah. And literally because they can't afford to be down. So,
Yeah.
but this becomes, this is in kernel. We're just throwing out this 40K file. We do it every day. We do it every other day. Never had a problem. Oops, now we do. Do we need to say, all right, we understand that you're doing this. Stop it. I'll only deploy stuff once a week, once every 2 weeks, and actually fully deploy this in a proper test lab to make sure this never happens again.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they did that, in a test lab of 100 computers or a bunch of servers or what have you, like, for example, when we were deploying new software, we went down to what was Compact Labs at the time, and they had 500 different computers in the lab
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of servers configured the way we want, so we could run. And we
Test.
went down there and we run a whole bunch of test scripts where we get the different server configurations with different databases and test all our software. And we'd bring up 100 clients, 500 clients, and they'd be hitting it. And then we do virtual tests, and we could scale that out to thousands. That's just what we did, because you wanted to understand what happens when this happens. But there's a lot of cost to that. Either
Yeah.
you're renting the lab, you're doing this stuff, or you have it and you're deploying it. And that's a lot of power, a lot of tests, a lot of time. And it's hard to justify that for when you're doing something like a 40K file. So there's got to be some middle ground.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, just an hour ago that I saw on CBC, CrowdStrike is now being sued by its shareholders.
No surprise there. Well, why are they being sued by the shareholders? Did the stock price drop? Probably, I would assume. I was so focused on everything else, I didn't look at their stock price.
Yeah, so a company defrauded them by concealing how its inadequate software testing could cause the global outage on July 19th.
Hey, what did I just say? What did I just say?
Yeah, exactly. And apparently, on top of this, to add more, the quote unquote employee that was quote unquote responsible is fake, or apparently like they just kind of found someone to throw them to the a martyr. Martyr.
Okay. They say, hey, John, you're fired today because you're our most recent employee. I know there was a meme going around that was pretty funny. It's my first day, blah, blah, blah. I just deployed this file, going for lunch now, and whatever, this guy doing it.
Yeah.
So,
so then it just goes to show that they really didn't fix the problem. They didn't address because like that person is probably going to do something messed up again. Maybe not as big of a problem, but they never learn. No one ever learns.
Go check out the TorontoStarts.com. How CrowdStrike's update caused the blue screen of death. If you want more information, it's there. And the Silicon Scoop interview, this audio will be there too. So we ready to jump to the next one?
Yeah.
All right. WebXray revolutionized search engine tracking. So apparently you're being tracked.
No. Really? Even though they tell you you're not being tracked, you're being tracked 100%. So I didn't get a chance to do a deep dive into this as far as play around or explore with WebXray, but I did do some background research on this. So what they're claiming is it's the tool that's designed to provide transparency in how search engines track and use user data. So they developed it as a response to growing concerns about privacy and data. So it offers insights into tracking mechanisms that are employed by popular search engines like Bing and Google Search. And what it does is it analyzes data flow and identifies tracking scripts, and then reveals the extent of the data collection and potential privacy infringements. So it seems like it's very user-friendly to use, and it allows the regular individual to easily understand the complexity of tracking technologies It also highlights which third-party entities have access to their data and the nature of the information being collected, which is great because nowadays with all these AI, OpenAI startups, no, not OpenAI, but all these LLM startups, GPT startups, whatever you want to call them, using your data, this is really cool to learn. So it seems like if this actually is good, it'll play a crucial role in demystifying the digital landscape. And I know there's a browser that I think it's called the Brave browser that's built on privacy, and you can get paid for your data and things like that using crypto or something.
Yeah, Brave is good.
Yeah.
Brave's got some really interesting. I would be using it here, but it doesn't quite work with StreamYard well,
Yeah.
because it'd get rid of these ad stuff that pop up. I really don't like them when we're doing this. I don't mind them on the websites, but I forget to turn on my blocker for this, and you see the pop-ups at the side.
Yeah.
Oh, well, somebody's getting some free advertising here. So as every moment you spend online, you're being tracked by Google, Facebook, Amazon, and hundreds of other websites are cataloging every search term, mouse click, and website you visit. Even your private stuff, when you do incognito mode and whatever, they're still tracking you. So don't be fooled by that.
Incognito mode, no.
A lot of it's legal, but some of it isn't. And if you don't know what you're looking for, it can be hard to parse and scale the legality of the data companies are collecting the data on you. So this is a new tool made by a former engineer that apparently a normal user can enter a text string like cancer or pregnancy, then see which websites are tracking that specific search using which cookies and what those cookies are for.
Yeah, I can't wait to have time to mess around with this. This is really, really cool. I know there was another website or another company that was developing. So what you could do is you could go to this website, give them your email address, log in, and it could tell you what data you could what data you could access and what data you could get deleted and how to delete that data, which was pretty cool. Maybe that's the next step for these guys as well.
Yeah, once you know who's tracking you and whatnot, I guess the next step would be figuring out how to contact those people and have your data removed or protected, or say you got to pay me for it, depending on what the rules of the day are. WebXray operates by analyzing the tracking mechanism used by websites to monitor user behavior. When a user enters a query, WebXray scans the sophisticated websites for cookies and other tracking technologies. So you understand that you're being tracked all the time. Facebook pixel is ubiquitous everywhere. And that means everybody, even when you're not on Facebook, you're being tracked, right? So Eventbrite, every tool out there has a place for Facebook pixel or a Google tracking or whatnot codes, so that they're tracking people all over the internet everywhere you go, and they fingerprinted your machine and they know you go in here, 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 here. And though I might be trying to figure out who's coming to my site and how often, the big companies are taking that and amalgamating all that and tracking John Irwin all over the place.
Yeah. So as we're talking, I'm going through the WebXray site.
Yep.
I don't particularly like it. What would be great, and hopefully they get to this, is that it's a plugin in your browser. Because right now you've got to manually input the URL or the text search or things like that, and then there's a bunch of things. Obviously, there's the demo version, and then you can upgrade to unlock. But I don't know if this is for the average user at this point.
It probably isn't, but it boasts several powerful features. So made by a Google engineer. Google's not famous for making user-friendly stuff. They do function over UI, and then eventually someone makes it usable. But they've got a search visibility tool, helps users understand how visible their searches are to tracking mechanisms. So you might have to enter some stuff, but it's easy enough. Just go back to your search history. What have you searched in the last 48 hours? Grab a couple of those, plug them in, and see who's tracking you as a result of that. Rank tracking capabilities monitors how tracking activities affect website rankings and visibilities, meaning how does that affect Google SEO from they're tracking you, but how does that affect SEO? Keyword and SEO analytics provide detailed analytics on how keywords are tracked and used by websites. So if they know that you've entered this over here, or what are they doing to feed you different information over somewhere else?
Yeah.
And for performance monitoring.
Yeah, and this is timely for us to cover this because I think Google just announced that they're scrapping their plan to eliminate cookies from their Chrome browser.
No surprise. They don't
Yeah,
have a proper replacement for you.
no, they don't.
And
And
people
I'm
don't
sure
want to
they
move
got
away
so much
from it.
flack from advertisers, and they got so much,
Developers.
again, corporate greed.
Well, it's that. And if you want to do
Yeah,
web development, you need to be able to track people over time, and they have to replace that. And that means, okay,
yeah,
every developer out there is using cookies.
yeah,
So what's the new thing, and how do you get everybody to deploy that on websites? They probably
yeah,
just gave up and said, you know what, this isn't really, we need a group committee to move this forward. So
yeah,
yeah, so I think there's other privacy tools you should be taking a look at, but if you're worried about online and tracking, or you just want to take a look, go to WebXray. Agreed, it's not necessarily user friendly. Go back into Google or whatever browser you use, and put in a couple of your recent searches and find out who's tracking you as a result of those things, and that gives you
yeah.
an idea of how scary this is.
Yeah. Well, the worst part about this is it doesn't take into effect that our phones are listening to us, and you get ads based on things that you've said, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, you've had a conversation with someone. Well, here's a here's a side note as we get ready to go on to the next one. I met a person who works at a travel agency to pick up something for a friend. Just said, hey, they bought a Fitbit off them or something, picked it up. Just encountered them. For 2 weeks afterward, I get nothing but ads from the company she worked for. I
Crazy.
never did the search. I never did any of that stuff, but because, they're tracking. You were in proximity of somebody else was texting a person who works there. Then now they're saying, okay, we're going to feed you ads for Flight Center because you want travel.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Are
It's
we ready to jump
absolutely,
on to the next one?
absolutely.
So, what AI impact on workplace productivity is now coming in question. I see everywhere. Oh, I can't without Sonnet 3.5. I'm
Yeah.
10 times productive with it now, with Claude 3.5, with OpenAI. I'm being way more productive. I'm this, I'm that. Great. But we're also starting to see that we're really not getting their productivity gains that people are claiming. And funny, I was watching a few of these developer videos saying, you say you're doing all this stuff with AI and you can duplicate a website and stuff, and said, okay, go ahead and duplicate mine. It's pretty simple. And he had a bunch of people doing it, and it was really crappy, and said, I'm going to have to rewrite all of it. So how is that more efficient? Because I have to rewrite all of this. What are
Yeah.
you seeing from an AI workplace productivity? Are we seeing the benefits that people want?
I don't think yet because I think it all comes down to horrible prompts. And I think there's so much time spent on getting the right output that you want, or getting to an output that is usable. Um, and that's a huge learning curve. That's the basis of getting an output. So um, once you get that prompt down, yes, productivity is going to go up on that specific task that you're trying to do. But for each task, you've got to get the prompt right. And so, and there's all these different modifiers that you can use, like temperature between 1 and 10. You can say no yapping, or there was another one too. But like um, the thing is, and with any of these, right, is if you're using it and you don't know what the output should be, then it's useless because it's going to give you an output and you're going to use that and you're going to think it's a good output, but it's really not. And so there's a huge problem here where people are. I think the biggest problem outside of productivity is people are trying to use this for things that they don't know what the output should be, and so they're actually getting dumber because they're taking that output as if it's true without knowing whether or not it's accurate or not. And that's a problem. The other thing is that although like you can find prompts out there, right? So you can use a prompt that's out there and it could reduce time spent on mundane tasks. The problem being though with employers now is that it seems like, and this is from the article from the survey that Upwork did. Employees are expected to handle more complex tasks that AI cannot yet manage. So it highlights the need for a balanced implementation strategy. So these companies think these executives who aren't using AI or maybe don't know it very well have these ridiculous expectations, and so they're just saying, you know what, use AI to figure it out, and they're not realizing that like there are limitations to using AI, right?
Yeah, we're seeing here the promise of AI. 96% of C-suite leaders surveyed expect AI to increase productivity. About 37% of C-suite respondents said they expect employees to use AI to increase their output. 30% to take on a wider range of responsibilities, is what you're saying. Now they got more work to do because, hey, here's an AI tool that's going to help you. We're going to give you 30% more work, and 20% to work longer hours. Some 39% of companies surveyed are mandating employees use AI, and 46% encourage employees to use AI, even though they're taking on 30% more range of responsibility and doing 20% longer hours.
Yeah.
So, this is what people are complaining about and saying, wait a minute, your AI is supposed to make my life easier, but you're just giving me more work, making it more complicated, and I working longer hours because AI is not quite doing what I needed to
Yeah.
do. Less
So
than 20. Yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Less than 26% of leaders who expect to use AI to improve productivity offer AI training programs, and only 13% have a well implemented AI strategy. Meanwhile, 37% of leaders say their workforce is highly skilled with AI, but only 17% of employees agree. 38% say they feel overwhelmed by using artificial intelligence tools at work.
So that's the problem right there. Is lack of AI training. So they're just throwing them in. They think because the AI is going to do the work for you that you don't need to be trained on it. And so that is, I think, one of the biggest hurdles here. And they're actually, for those companies that are in Canada, there's provincial training grants for each province. In Ontario, it's the COJG, Canada Ontario Job Grant. You can get 80% of your costs covered to get your employees trained on AI. 80%. So do it properly, guys. Get your employees, if you really want to use AI and you want your employees to use AI, get them trained. Get a course.
Absolutely. This is what you said. While 65% of employees believe AI can improve productivity, nearly half of employees using AI say they don't know how to use it to meet their employees' productivity expectations. So train them. Many say it's actually increasing their workload, saying 39% spend more time reviewing or moderating the content AI produces. 23% say extra hours learning to use AI, and 21% are being asked to work more. Overall, 40% of employees feel that their company expectations regarding AI are unrealistic. And you're right about not checking. I mean, I had AI write my format in my newsletter saying, hey, here are the things I need you to put together, make it look nice.
Yeah.
This is all for my newsletter, make it look nice. And it changed dates and stuff. And I'm like, oh, damn it. And not the first date. It was like the third one down. So I missed it when I'm editing. Like, oh man, like how can you, like, I clearly had those things stated, but you just changed it. So
exactly.
We can't really trust it. And it is causing more work. Now, you're absolutely right when you say you really need to know how to use AI, because it's not as simple as loading up ChatGPT or Claude and putting in a couple of prompts and getting what you want. You really need to work at building the right prompts that are going to be for you. And I'm still tweaking mine. Like some of my some of my prompts are pages long, and I've got prompts that include, my target avatars for certain businesses and for certain clients, and I have codes that include all that, and it's got a very detailed, who they are, how, so that we can use all sorts of stuff on those. And those are pages and pages in a prompt. And so you just take a step back and say, okay, it shows you how to format, it shows you how to output, or how output the documents so you can do this stuff. But it takes a long time to build those. And I'm tweaking them all the time because sometimes it's giving me output that I don't want. So, okay, I'm adding stuff. But it's getting to the point where it's really starting to increase my productivity. But that doesn't mean working less. Like I'm using, because now I have these tools, I can post more to social media about all my events running, and I can share stuff like with you and other speakers. So they have their own social media kits, but that's work I didn't necessarily do before.
Yeah.
So that's extra work. It's great that it's doing it and I can do it. But this is all part of, are we really
It's
getting
a learning curve though too. Like it's a new way of doing things, right?
Yeah, and I'm gonna get to the point where it's just taking my stuff and posting it, but it takes a while for me to get there, and there are tools for that.
Yeah, there's actually 2 free courses that I'm gonna be taking. I'll send them to you later. On prompt engineering, and they're free, so I'll share them with you. And
share them with me. I'll put them in the blog post on torontostarts.com or the show notes and Silicon Scoop, so anyone can go take a look. Spend the time, do the work. I'm going to be installing something called Fabric soon on my computer. If you want to just Google Fabric AI, and it's an open source thing, and all the kinds of stuff it can do, you'll start to be amazed as to the types of things you can do when you start putting multiple systems together.
Yeah.
So let's jump on to this next one. The AI $1 trillion lie. So people are getting scared. When I say people, I'm saying investors, and that we've had over $600 billion invested. Most of these AI companies are talking about, like Facebook, Microsoft, they're all talking about exponentially increasing their investment in AI over the next few years, and almost none of them are making any money. We just talked about the workplace benefits that we're going to see during this big AI benefit we're supposed to be seeing. We're going to see 76 billion increase in productivity worldwide, and it's not happening yet. So investors are worried, and investments starting to slow down and say we're never going to get our return on investments on these AI companies. What are your feelings on that?
Well, the thing is like look at Uber, for example. Oh, by the way, there's a great show on Uber, by the way, with a TV show. But look at how long it took them before they were profitable. It took them years and years before, and I think it was just in the last couple of years that they turned a profit. So I think our appetite for instant gratification and seeing an instant benefit is overtaking is overtaking or just blinding us and wanting to see results right away. And it's getting even worse with AI, because now as we're using AI, we're getting an instant output, and so it's raising the bar even higher for us to get instant gratification, instant rewards, results.
So this is all based on the McKinsey report, or reports from PwC and McKinsey. According to PwC, AI could contribute 15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. Driven primarily by an increase in productivity and consumer demand. McKinsey analysts echo similar sentiments, highlighting the potential of AI to revolutionize industries and create substantial economic value. The problem is that they've been putting all this investments, and
Yeah.
the projections aren't mapping to that.
Yeah, true. And again, this is a new venture. This is new technology. So people are going to get things wrong. People are going to overhype. People are going to like look at every startup in the world for the most part. They overpromise and a lot of times don't meet expectations. But I do agree that AI is overhyped. Um, and it's right now it's like a gold rush right now where companies are just they're selling shovels rather than doing the hard work of finding gold, right? So, um, like AI chatbots, apps claiming to connect users with deceased loved ones using AI, virtual girlfriends. That's kind of like the snake oil promises right now. And so, the actual revolutionary capabilities fail to deliver in a meaningful way. Um, and we're starting to see that. We're starting to see the cracks. So I think it's just a matter of the ship needs to be righted and focus needs to be on things that are actual of value, if that makes sense.
Yeah, recent studies indicate that while AI is making substantial contributions in economic growth, the scale of impact is more moderate than initially anticipated. Factors such as complexity of integration AI into existing systems and the need for substantial investments in infrastructure and training are key constraints, like we talked about in the previous thing, saying, we're not getting the productivity benefits because we're not bothering to train the people on what the expectation is, or even the managers or executives who are pushing these tools don't even really know. I've been in many organizations where no one shows up for the training, yet you're putting out this $1 million system for people, and you do all the work. You're trying to get people to show up to do your processes into the system, and when they get the product, they're not happy with it because they didn't put the effort into it. The same with all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So
Here's what I'm worried about though with AI going forward, right? So
yeah.
AI is trained on data that's available, public domain, all that sort of stuff, right? Um, what happens when they start training these large language models on incorrect outputs that people don't realize are incorrect outputs and now are being deployed onto the internet, and now these LLMs are going to relearn some of this, and what happens then?
And we've seen so many fiascos, right?
Yeah.
You trust the data, you don't trust the data, you trust it to do stuff. It does stuff 1,000 times right, and then on the 1,000 it does a total breakdown just because you know,
Oh, by the
it's
way, I think I figured out why it does that a breakdown because it runs out of context.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I
I'll
was
have
just
to
reading
look
an
into
article
it.
on it.
And here's some quotes like from John Doe, AI investor. While AI holds significant potential, the $1 trillion claim often lacks a solid foundation. From Jane Smith, a tech analyst, despite the hype, the $1 trillion projections for AI are based on optimistic scenarios. So there's a lot of questions, and great that Nvidia is making a crap ton of money because everyone's buying their hardware to do
Yeah,
AI. But that, we've got a case study on that on this blog post on torontostarts.com. But that's not really a good case study because all the other AI companies have to buy that hardware and they're spending billions to do it. So great for the hardware companies, but it's the
yeah,
software companies that aren't making the money.
great for the infrastructure companies, right? Yeah, exactly. That's
I,
why
I,
Nvidia. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. Oh, the visualization one doesn't exist. Damn it. There's a link to a thing I'll have to
Oh,
find here that had a good visualization. So we want to keep an eye on this productivity, everything related to AI. Are we going to get there? Is it going to fall apart? How many
yeah,
tools are going to exist? And how many people are good from an investor point of view are actually going to make their money?
exactly. Yeah.
All right, let's jump on to this next one. OpenAI just announced SearchGPT.
Yeah.
Is AI powered search going to kill Google?
I hope so. I think Google has become too complacent. Um, they've they've uh, they've monopolized, which okay, fine. Like they're smart. They've done things in a smart way, but um, like now they're messing around with the algorithms and things like that that are hurting the small, medium-sized, the mom and pop shops, all those sort of stuff. So yeah, I think it's definitely time for a change now because of that. I wasn't able. So the Search GPT is in beta, and I wasn't able to get access to it yet. But they're claiming to revolutionize the search engine industry by integrating advanced AI capabilities to deliver more accurate and context-aware search results. Which, unlike traditional search results that relied heavily on keyword matching and ranking algorithms, Search GPT uses NLP to understand the intent behind the user queries and provide more relevant answers, which I like because I did try to mess around with that with intent in Google search. Like there's different modifiers you can use. It never really went really well. Like it never really worked the way I expected it to, if that makes sense. So this will be interesting because they're claiming it's going to be able to comprehend and generate human-like text, which allows it to offer more nuanced responses and different things like that.
Search GTP is just a prototype for now. The service is powered by GTP4 family of models. It will only be accessible to 10,000 test users at launch. Says that OpenAI is working with third-party partners to and using direct content feeds to build its search results. The goal is to eventually integrate the search feature directly into ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's cool. I like this. I like this approach. There needs to be a change. I'm sorry if it's going to hurt those companies that make their money on SEO optimization and things like that, but there might be a new revenue model for them in this new GPT search age. Yeah, this is interesting. And everyone's been saying ever since AI has come out, like they need to integrate. And actually, when OpenAI came out, people started using it as an alternative to Google search already without this Search GPT. So this makes sense that this is a natural progression that OpenAI is developing.
Well, we've been talking to it all along. This ruins a lot of people's business models and changes the
Yeah,
dynamic of the internet as a whole, where people are no longer searching. And you're like, okay, we're no longer searching. We're using tools like Perplexity or Search GPT or even local search engines to answer our questions. And how do you know the validity of it? The problem is, when you
exactly.
go out and you do a Google search, you're looking at 10 pages. Sometimes you're 3 pages in.
But I don't go back the second.
Yeah, before you're finding the answer that you're looking for, because
Yeah,
these aren't necessarily the relevant things you want. How good is that going to work on a GPT platform where it just gives you answers? Well, that's not really what I'm looking for. And like, I know maybe I'm in a brain fog sometimes, or just can't find the right words to explain what
yeah,
it is I'm looking for. You know, it just sometimes it's a more complex term thing. I'm getting this type of error with this type of machine, and I have to kind of explain, okay, it's not a login, this is this, and eventually it comes back to me and gives me what I want once you get it right.
yeah,
So again, with something like this, is it going to give you a whole bunch of options? Is it just going to ask you for context? Is it just, it gives you graphic answers, video answers, picture answers? It sounds great, but
yeah,
who's doing the fact checking?
yeah,
When do made up AI facts just become facts on the internet? Where you're like, everyone's just quoting these things, because we live in a generation where no one seems to actually do fact checking anymore. And it's not just SEO companies, it's all the companies doing advertising on the internet. Are we still
yeah.
going to go to Facebook? Are we still going to go to or are these new systems going to be the new Googles, and we're going to get so many ads in the results that it's going to become useless too?
Yeah, who knows? Like, and this could be the way to getting more revenue, right? Is figuring out an ad revenue model for this search. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Like, honestly, this is horrible to say, but I trust TikTok searches. Like, because I look at the videos, like their TikTok searches are giving me more accurate results than Google searches nowadays.
Yeah, because you know why they do that? Because Google and every other American-based search engine or tool is trying to push whatever they're trying to push on you.
Exactly.
TikTok is doing it the other way around, where it's saying, oh, we know what you like, and we're just giving you what you like. We're not giving you any other stuff. This is what you like. Every search, everything you click on narrows it down, narrows it down, narrows it down.
Yeah.
Where that the other platforms are kind of using that, but they're using that to drive sales, drive ads, drive these other things. Not only that, but they're pushing you in a certain direction. If you've been watching
Exactly.
what's been going on, if you've been following Elon Musk's tweets about what's happening in the US election when you do Google searches, it's funny. When you Google Kamala Harris, all the stuff. When you Google Donald Trump, all that comes up is Kamala Harris, and when you Google Kamala Harris, no Donald Trump stuff comes up. So
Yeah.
what's going on, right? Who's controlling what you see and what you don't? And when you move to a AI platform, you start to wonder who's controlling what you see and who's controlling what you don't see. Are you getting the glue on the put glue on the pizza to keep the cheese on, or are you getting a real answer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And this scares me going forward, because the problem is, and again, like, I don't mean to knock people who, no, yeah. If you're trusting your results on anything, if you're not questioning your results these days, the information you're getting, then I'm sorry, but you deserve whatever's coming to you, because, like, you can't trust information nowadays. You got to double check things, and I think it's just going to get worse.
Yeah, and OpenAI's costs are going up, saying they're reaching 7 billion this year with millions of users of the free version. I'd like to compare that with what we did about their revenue. If their costs are 7 billion this year, I thought they were around 6 billion in revenue when we were looking at it a couple of
Oh, I
weeks
can't
ago. I'd have to
remember.
go
Yeah.
back and take a look to see. So are they losing 2 billion? So we want to keep an eye on it. This is the direction we were headed right from the beginning. Google's been scared. Everyone's been scared from a search engine point of view, because how do ads, how do you get discovery? How do you do all these things now,
Yeah.
so that your business can get in front of people?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just change everything. So with
Yeah.
things like Facebook and Google, whose business model are about ads and those kinds of things and search, this is going to be a big problem.
Yeah, and I'm still baffled that Facebook hasn't implemented the similar type of searching that TikTok has, because I would use Instagram more if they had the search type engine that TikTok has. It's absolutely baffling to me.
Yeah, we'll have to see if they implement it with these new tools.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Okay, we got one more if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
Dark oxygen.
I'm
This
excited to
is
talk about
this is brand new future tech stuff. They just found oxygen at the bottom of the ocean. What's going on?
Yeah. So, by the way, the way this happened was, this guy was measuring oxygen levels at the bottom of the ocean. And what he was noticing was that the oxygen, in certain scenarios, the oxygen levels were going up. So this is crazy. For 5 years, he thought that his instruments were not working properly. 5 years of doing this, until finally he realized that something mysterious was happening. So he found out that these minerals were producing oxygen at the sea floor, which completely debunks science current that says oxygen can only be created through photosynthesis, which doesn't surprise me. We're always constantly learning new things. So he was performing experiments at 4,000 meters depth, and detected steadily increasing oxygen over 2 days, reaching over 3 times the normal levels. So the source, it implicates the role of these polymetallic nodules, which are rock mineral deposits scattered across the seabed. I don't know if you have a picture of it, but it just looks like these little rocks on the seabed, right? And so oxygen production correlated with the nodule abundance, and nodule only experiments also exhibited productions. So how does this happen, right? What they're hypothesizing is that the nodules could act as quote unquote geobatteries. And we'll get into that in a bit too. Within the metallic layers, flowing electrons may create voltage differences. This electricity splits, well, again, according to their hypothesis, could split seawater into hydrogen and oxygen via electrolysis. So more, obviously, we're going to have to do more analysis as needed, but the nodules appear to behave electrochemically, which is really, really cool. But oxygen production varied greatly, but reached rates rivaling sediment oxygen consumption, which is pretty cool. So boosting oxygen availability could influence deep sea biogeochemistry, carbon storage, and even life. But it also introduces the concerning possibilities that nodule mining could disrupt the sea floor and things like that. So there's a lot that needs to be explored. There's a lot more experimentation that needs to happen. But this is really cool.
Yeah, I couldn't find a graphic of what you're looking for. Sorry for those people watching as I was scrolling through. It says here that given the high voltage potentials up to 0.95 volts on the nodule surfaces, they hypothesize the seawater electrolysis may contribute to this dark oxygen. How confident are the researchers that the oxygen production is linked to the nodules acting like batteries?
Yeah, so based on the evidence presented in the study and the white paper, it seems like the researchers are reasonably confident that the nodules play a key role in the observed dark oxygen production, but they also acknowledge that there's still open questions. Oxygen production correlated with nodule surface area in the experiments. Nodule only lab experiments also exhibited oxygen production, but the caveats here are the exact mechanism and electrochemistry behind the nodules acting as geo batteries still needs to be confirmed. The energy force driving electron flow in the nodules hasn't been identified and still needs to be identified. It's also unclear how factors like sediment coverage may influence nodule electricity generation. So there's a lot more work that's needed to understand, but they're pretty confident. There's evidence that points strongly to these nodules playing that key role.
How might deep ocean oxygen production impact ocean life and health? Could it lead to more abundant ecosystems? Could we be living at the bottom of the ocean at some point?
It's a good question. So, more oxygen availability could allow for expanded habitats, higher densities of aerobic organisms on the seafloor. Areas with higher nodule abundance and more oxygen production could become biodiversity hotspots in the abyss. Increased oxygen may alter seafloor food webs and enable larger body sizes. So many deep sea creatures are stunted due to oxygen limitation. Higher oxygen could increase rates of biogeochemical cycles, nutrient regeneration, organic matter decomposition. It could create refuge for oxygen-dependent animals as oxygen minimum zones expand in intermediate depth. However, too much oxygen may stress or overexpose adapted anaerobic microbes on the seafloor. So in general, the oxygen seems likely to provide major benefits for deep abundance, deep ocean abundance. But again, more research is needed. I don't think that we could leverage that, or at least based on current technology, I don't think we could leverage it. But as far as ocean biology, absolutely.
What do you think? Now that we know this, are we going to start harvesting these things? Are we going to start mucking with it? And is that going to affect the
Yeah,
ecosystem as a whole?
I think so, because this is natural. Like if we disrupt something that's natural, the loss of seafloor oxygen that support the expanded biodiversity and mass, it could return to a more oxygen limited conditions, declines in population in that habitat, shifts in community composition, slowed biogeochemical cycling rates, altered carbon storage dynamics on the seafloor, reduced energy availability for seafloor ecosystems. Like it's just negative, and that's something I'm worried about, right? But the scale of the consequences would depend on factors like the extent of the nodule monitoring, how much it disrupts seafloor integrity, how much oxygen levels decline, things like that. But it definitely would make an impact.
So I'm gonna throw you some curveballs because when you start thinking about this, it just starts to make me think.
Yeah.
All right, so if there's oxygen at the bottom of the ocean, does that mean where we find water and other places, there's potentially oxygen creation outside of photosynthesis on other planets?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say yes, because of electrolysis. Electrolysis is part of physics. It's a method that creates byproducts from an um, electro whatever. Well, I can't think of the word, but I think there is. But again, um, I'm not sure how abundant these nodules are, and the chemical composition and the makeup of these nodules. So I think uh, without further experimentation and analysis as to what the makeup is, how they're actually doing this, I would say there's definitely a possibility. But the percentage of that possibility, it would increase based on more knowledge of the nodules themselves. What do you think, Craig?
Well, I'm interested. I think I don't know how much these create. Like this just sounds like all right. If we can supercharge these and make a little nodule farm where we find water somewhere else and start creating natural oxygen on those planets to create atmospheres, at least in controlled areas like inside buildings and whatnot, we'd have whatever happening. It sounds like an interesting way that we haven't really thought about before. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm a little wondering about the phenomenon of generating electricity and splitting seawater at that level. Is this something unique to deep ocean, or is this
No.
similar process that occurs elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a similar process. It's electrolysis. So you could do this. The only problem is I don't have the knowledge enough to know how much oxygen electrolysis could create. And there was actually, I think, an article that we were going to discuss. No, that was from carbon dioxide cleaning, or yeah, carbon dioxide cleaning. But there was one we were talking about. I think is stainless steel for that they were using for electrolysis. And I think depending on the materials that you use, who knows, you could create oxygen, but you need a fuel source, so you need salt water in order to create it, right? So um, the question is what's the output from the input, and is it enough to warrant the use of that for creating oxygen?
The bottom of the ocean is a whole new freaking world. I say that because we get all those weird fish with the knobbies and the
Yeah.
fake outs and the glowing lights and that the general public doesn't know a lot about, but I imagine oceanographers and deep sea people know a lot more. How does this discovery change our understanding of the deep ocean as an environment as a whole?
Yeah. So just before we get into that, um, do you know? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I only know it because I just did a quick search. Do you know how much of the ocean floor has been mapped using modern high resolution technology?
I'm gonna say 10%.
Actually, I thought it was around there. They're saying it's 26.1%,
All right, more than I
which
thought.
it's a lot more than I thought. I thought it was in the single digits. But anyways, to go back to your question, so the discovery of dark oxygen does provide a shift in how we view the deep ocean environment because it challenges the long-held paradigm of the deep sea floor as just an oxygen-starved sedimentary sink, right? So the oxygen production adds a photosynthesis-like process, but it's fueled by geochemistry of mineral deposits rather than sunlight. So in some ways, it does make the dark abysmal plains more similar to surface waters with natural oxygen generation. But deep waters, they still have huge pressures, cold temperatures, no sunlight, and limited food input. So that makes it very distinct from shallow zones. So um, it's an exciting find, but the discovery doesn't fully transform our understanding of the deep as a very alien environment. It remains a unique habitat despite intriguing parallels to surface oxygen generation.
Any last words on this one?
No.
You sent me a link about Agent GPT. Do we want to talk about it?
I haven't explored it, but that's just we were talking about the next iteration of AI and the advancements. there's a website. I have to mess around with it, but we could talk about it next time. Maybe you and I can mess around with it. But
Perfect.
We'll create agents to do things for you. So if you go to the website right now, you can do like plan a detailed trip to Hawaii. So it's similar to an AI output, but it can deploy agents automatically for you. So it's really interesting to explore.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah.
All right. So if people are looking for startup funding, where do they go?
Come to me on LinkedIn, John Irwin, JONIRWIN. Come find me on LinkedIn. Happy to talk shred, happy to talk grants, tax credits. I've got over 16 years experience behind me. But for small businesses, startups, and who need coaching, where can they go, Craig?
Well, they go to torontostarts.com or to startupcoach.ca, find out more about our programs and the work we do. On torontostarts.com on the main page, we got events and workshops coming. We've just announced starting in August. We've got a bunch of people already signed up for your 10 grants in 10 minutes. One already. Yeah. That's great. We're doing how to develop your sales strategy. We're doing the best offense is a good defense with legal, how to defend yourself legally as a startup. And we're doing express ops where we're automating different systems. And our first one's going to be about automating lead generation. How do you get leads? How do you automate it? How do you get them? So you got, that's one of the things startups come to me all the time and say, where do I find leads? Where do I get people? And we're going to show them how to do that. And if you automate that or use the tools we have to do it, you're going to get me doing some stuff. You're going to get John doing some stuff, and Bob Minos will join us, and he's going to show us how he can do some stuff at the same time. So
cool.
Different approaches, and we'll love to get feedback from people. So that'll be fun.
Love it.
And don't forget Startup Drinks TO, August 14th.
Heart of Futurist.
Blockchain Futurist after party. I don't know if you noticed their AI lineup looks incredible this year. They might have to add AI to their.
Honestly, their lineup alone looks incredible. They got so amazing speakers, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a couple interviews lined up for while we're there, and we'll talk a little bit about getting other people. We have a few platforms I want to interview as many as we can. If it's great to have them on Future Tech or Silicon Scoop, that's great. But otherwise, we'll talk to them on any one of our other platforms, whatever makes the most sense.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Check out the Silicon Scoop podcast at torontostarts.com or on any one of your favorite podcast apps. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Craig.